Hey guys, welcome back to Attachment Point News Roundtable. I got Marc Bernstein with Balto on. We're gonna be talking sales today. We're gonna be talking about AI and doing things right on the call and diving deep. But thanks, Marc, for joining me. Looking forward to chatting.
Brett, you too. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, so Benjamin and I connected a little while back. We were just talking about the insurance nerds community, about the different verticals Balto's in. He mentioned insurance is one place where your AI is able to help assist with sales calls, customer service calls. But yeah, looking forward to hearing about what you guys are up to.
Yeah, sure. So we invented a technology that solves the problem that every single person in sales and customer service has had. And that is that you know what you're supposed to do before a call. Maybe you had best practices on it. Maybe you had training on it. Maybe your manager's been talking to you about it. But you have this idea of what you want to do when you get in the call with the customer. Then you get on the phone, you finish the call with the customer, and you hang up and you think to yourself, I completely blew that. Like I knew what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to ask those questions, supposed to do discovery, I was supposed to give the proposal in a certain way, do the presentation in this way, present options in this way, but I didn't do it. And the realization we had is that's one thing to know what you should do before you actually get on the call with a customer. It's another thing to do it consistently when you're talking to the customer every single time. And the AI we built is actually real-time guidance. It analyzes everything that you say as you say it, everything the customer says as the customer says it, and in real time gives you guidance on your computer screen about how you can be as effective as possible.
That's cool. So I'm 36, been in sales basically since I was like 23, office moves for 6 years, different things around insurance, copiers. And it's hard, and I think about how many times salespeople get bumped job to job and how ugly that early resume could be, because maybe they didn't catch the account, maybe markets weren't shifting, maybe a new opportunity wasn't opening up. That's cool that you guys are kind of like the play-by-play coach in the ear. It's almost like, CIA. So is it on the screen as they're doing it, or is it kind of a whisper sort of product, if you don't mind, or going behind the veil a little bit?
Yeah, it's on their screens. And I'll tell you a funny story, Brett. This is part of the inspiration for why we invented the product. Is I was watching a manager and a rep doing whisper mode together, right, where the manager could whisper to the rep and only the rep could hear him, but not the customer. And we're all sitting here gathered around listening to the sales call, and the customer goes, I think I just need a few more weeks. Why don't you just try me back in 3 or 4 weeks? And the manager is all hyped up. The manager says, don't take that. And then the rep goes, I can't take that, and freaks out and just says that to the customer. Customer says, what? And we saw this and said, it's just so hard to balance both of those audio stimuli coming at you. Your manager's saying one thing and you're supposed to listen to it, but not make it part of the conversation. You're supposed to stay in the back of your head. The customer says something, that's what you're really supposed to focus on. How do you balance those two things? And we realized that you need to actually do it visually, where it's something you can see right in front of you. Because then whenever the customer pauses or you pause or you take a sip of water, you look over and then you can see the recommendations versus something that has to happen right there, right now, because someone's yelling in your ear.
It kind of makes sense. And my only frame reference would be when you're on a Zoom call, whatever else, like the chat versus the conversation. And you can kind of have fun in the chat and it doesn't really kill the conversation. Not that I would ever do a one-on-one Zoom in a group meeting to, chat with somebody and joke around on the side. But it's such an interesting, like, I'll call it dance or fencing. When you're in sales, it's moment by moment, it's face, it's reactions, it's, listening. I've enjoyed co-selling as well. And this might be, or co-selling as well, kind of similar to what you're up to, because sometimes too, that extra set of eyes or that AI can see the thing that it's hard for you to grab in the moment, because you're in that kind of, fluid movement process. And, that outside observer could be the one that says, oh, ding, 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 we're where we need to be, like pump the brakes, stop selling, just transition over to here.
Yeah, Brett, that's exactly right. It's funny because some of the best recommendations that the AI can make aren't things that the representative should say right then and there. It's calling out moments that are happening that you might otherwise miss. So one of the best ones, the favorite ones that I love to use, is picking out when a customer is interested. Like often someone is interested and it's a little bit subtle, and your inclination is just to blow past it and go talk about the next feature, the next line that you want to sell. And, but you don't take a second and say, wait a minute, actually, can you tell me more about why you're interested in that? And Balto will pop up
That's
customer
cool.
interest and then give you like 5 questions that you can ask the customer to expand on it. And you can measure when you use those questions and follow up on customer interest. I think that I don't remember the exact stat. I think it's over 30% difference in conversion rates when you follow up on the customer's interest and ask why they're interested in the thing they're interested in versus moving on to the next item.
No, I could see that. So through a series of events, a couple of goofy sales job, I started my own brokerage 3.5 years ago. Now I have a couple things going. But I loved when I was interviewing for jobs before, when you see it pivot, when they go from like grill to sell, like when you see them try to start bringing you on board,
Yeah.
it's always fun. Yeah, not to get too nerdy or tangential into insurance, but the cool thing about insurance for the most part, people kind of have to buy, you're not selling them. So it's more about finding fit. But yeah, no, I love sales. Sales is super interesting. I was looking at like going into law school. I was never the strongest student. My dad's like, I don't know, my friends don't make that much money. They work really hard. And I told him I was going into sales. He like patted me on the back. He's like, son, salesmen make the most money in the world. But what always drew me to was just the independence and autonomy, and kind of sales being the gateway to like small business and, kind of small business ownership. But if you can sell, I would say you kind of feel like you can put your hands on the universe a little bit. I feel like most people, life kind of dictates to them, but if you have a sales mindset, it seems like you can kind of negotiate things, in 3D instead of 2D, I guess.
Brett, I'll tell you, that was actually pretty close to one of the best pieces of advice I ever got, best career advice I ever got. And, I graduated school with a degree in entrepreneurship, marketing, and psychology. So, of course, you graduate school, you think, okay, do I want to go in entrepreneurship? Do I want to go into marketing or psychology? Those are my 3 options. And I go to the head of the entrepreneurship program, and I ask him, what sort of field should I go into first? And I was thinking I was going to go into marketing, and he said, you should go into sales. He said, if you're trying to start a business, and that was my stated goals at some point, start a business that actually changes the course of human history. Big goal, but that's what I got. If you want to start a business, you need to go into sales, because you're either selling your first customers. You're not going to have some sales rep galloping through your door, coming in and saving you. Like, you're going to sell those customers, or you're selling your first employees, getting them excited about what you're trying to build and why they should join you, or you're selling financiers, people to actually fund the business, banks and venture capital firms or investors or whatever. So in the beginning, you're selling. And if you want to get something started, you need to have that skill. And he gave me that advice, and I went into sales, and it just turns out that I love sales too. So, but I mean, it's spot on that, like, if you want to take the reins of your future, sales is an absolutely limitless skill that allows you to do whatever you want.
Sales, and then I'll call it the ownership of success or outcomes. There have been times, even my own brokerage, I've wanted to bring on a business partner or get somebody else to be the solution. I think sales is part of it, but there's this like kind of buck stops here, all the cliche stuff. If it's going to be, it's up to me kind of mindset things are super helpful. So do you see Balto, it's almost like a digital assistant to get people in the right frame of mind, because not everyone grew up with a commission salesman dad. Not everyone grew up playing sports a bunch. Not everyone grew up with, some adversity, but not too much to kind of give thick skin. I feel like I was sort of built and thrown into this thing, and it's been a pretty good fit. I wouldn't pretend to be the world's best salesman, but not speaking for you, but it seems like something like Balto could be really cool, because not everyone's going to come into it with that frame. Not everyone's going to fit the box. Not everyone's going to check these 3 life experiences and be ready to be a salesperson. How does Balto help, kind of whoever wants to get in the game, be that much better?
Yeah, I think there's, I'd say, 2 or 3 ways. The first is consistency. Like, as people, we crave switching it up, and we go, okay, I'm going to try this pitch differently. But it's just because we're getting bored. It's not because we had a good reason. We won't set the agenda with the customer and say, here's the things we're going to talk about. Or we have a closing question that's been working really well. We kind of just try a different one. And then, you lose the sale, and you go, why did I do that? Why did I do that? And the first thing is, Balto says, hey, right here, are the key talking points that you wanted to hit. You told yourself ahead of time, smarter previous you said you should hit these things. Here they are. So number one is it really does help you be consistent. Number two is it introduces new things into your sales pitch that you haven't seen before. Because remember that, most of our customers, almost all of our customers aren't, one or two people kind of using it, by themselves. It's these big, sales, big sales floors. And, they'll have, hundreds of insurance brokers, thousands of insurance brokers, all on the sales floor. And if you think about how before the pandemic, salespeople learn from each other. Typically, it's that you were sitting next to them and you look at the guy or girl next to you and they're crushing it. And you just listen for a minute. You say, what are they doing? And then they get off the phone. You say, hey, what are you doing for your close? I'm getting kind of rusty. And they say, well, here's some of the closing questions I've been doing. You say, oh, okay, cool. Thanks. We'll try that. But now, how do you do that in a virtual world? Like a lot of these salespeople are at home by themselves. They have maybe a couple team meetings and a couple one-on-ones with managers, but they're not picking up all of the best things that everyone else is doing all day. And our software aggregates it. It takes all the best questions that guy's asking, all the best questions that girl's asking, all the different value propositions and positioning and pitches and closes, and takes them and puts them all into a playbook and says, here you go. This is what everyone in your company is doing. And by the way, we're measuring it sentence by sentence, item by item to see which one is the highest conversion rates. I mean, that's something that has just never existed before and changes. It takes you from being alone on an island to like having that digital sales floor, which is pretty as close to the pre-pandemic days as you can get, and hopefully a lot of people will find in a lot of ways a lot better.
Oh, totally. I kind of almost want to touch on two tangents. Yeah, part of my own like timidity sometimes with my own brokerage is there isn't that old hand in the corner office I can go bug about something. I'm super lucky to have the insurance nerds community that I can kind of hop in a Slack and ask some questions and usually get help. I talk too fast. I mumble, speak to text. I have to get very intentional. Is it transcribing what people are saying, digesting it, and then giving some outputs? How's Balto sort of taking in the content that it's, processing and get out? That's cool.
Yeah, and it also is measuring pace of speech. Yeah. So if you want to set it up to tell you when you're talking too fast, you can. Buyer be warned. It's funny, about 55% of the people for that particular feature love it. And it's actually one of their favorite features when they are being told they're talking too fast, because we really honed it. So if it says you're talking too fast, you really are talking too fast. But another 45% of people say, this is just how I talk. Yeah. No changing now, but it does measure pace of speech, and it also measures ratio. So if you're talking too much, it can say, hey, over the last 5 minutes, you've been talking 70% of the time. Here's a couple of questions you can use to break it up and pass it back to the person.
Yeah, kind of touching sales philosophy a little bit. Like there's an egotism in thinking you're going to talk somebody into something, but usually you can let them give you the close, I think. I think it's almost like a 40-60, like you just want to talk a little less than you get them talking. You don't want to be silent per se. Maybe there are some type A's who can just drive it over the top, but I've always found like it's like a little ball of energy. You're kind of shaking up, throwing to them. You see it drop, you grab it, you shake it up, you throw it back. It's fun. No, it's very fun to think about. Yeah. Another challenge I would think with sales, it's a bunch of type A people with like kind of some, ADD. If anybody's going to need like a little like pump the brakes, give the client some room, I feel like your true sales staff would need, that kind of encouraging.
Brett, the sales philosophy I started out on was the Sandler selling methodology. Yep. And I love Sandler. It's definitely changed, and Sandler, from the 70s isn't the same as Sandler from today. But one of the general principles that I picked up from Sandler is that it really isn't about you as the seller. It's really about the buyer. So the best sellers are the ones that are talking the absolute least. Like if you could talk zero, then you should. But I try to put that into the calls, and even where you answer a question with a question, because you don't know why the person's asking you the question that they're asking you if they want to know about specific detail. And you don't want to be obnoxious about it, but you want to make sure that you understand why they're asking so you can answer it in the best way. Those are the sort of things that put the other person in charge, that make the other person the star of the show, and make you just like a friendly, consultant who is helping them along the path that they really want to go down.
It's kind of fun to hop in the sales philosophy talk. I'm a big fan of the MBA. It's kind of goofy, but I feel like not everyone can talk the MBA. Not everybody really can nerd out hard on sales, sales philosophy. One of my comments is always like, I hate the idea of, talking to a woman in white gloves to eating ketchup popsicles. Like, go find somebody who wants a ketchup popsicle. Like, don't be lazy, and if you find fit, like, the job's done in and of itself. So sales floors, I think I also saw customer service. It's not just for sales. Balto kind of helps out in a few different facets of organizations, or?
Yeah, for sure. So, I'm sorry, I got to go back to ketchup popsicle for a minute. Yeah. And if you're selling to someone, if you're selling ketchup popsicles to a woman in white gloves, then the first thing that you want to do is explain to her all the reasons she does not want the ketchup popsicle. Because if you explain it, at the end she goes, "No, I seriously want these ketchup popsicles," then great, done, you did it. So anyway, like, selling against your product can be one of the most powerful things, because that puts you in on the right side. It puts you on the honest side. You're being upfront. But anyway, when it goes to customer service and experience, typically there are a couple of things that really matter in a customer experience call. Number one is getting the right information to the customer, period. Right? That's why you're there, is they're trying to get some information or get something done, and you need to get them the correct thing. If you get them the wrong thing, then, game over, it's zero. The second is doing it as fast as you possibly can. Every minute that you have to spend going and looking something up or going and asking a manager is a minute of the customer's life you're taking that you don't really need to be taking. So if you have all your resources right there, you get the answer right away. The best customer experience is the fastest customer experience. And the third is being that emotional outlet, right? Because customers are going to come to you in most scenarios in a customer service interaction. They're going to come to you less than perfectly happy, right? Because there's some problem that they have that they want solved. And so the first thing you got to do is you got to hear out their problem. And you can't gloss over it. You can't be snarky about it. You can't, pass off responsibility to some other organization or some other person. You got to really hear their problem, and you got to own their problem. And that takes an emotional nuance that you need to have in the conversation. So that doing those three things, getting the right information to the customer, getting them as fast as possible, and doing it in a way that shows the customer that you understand, so they leave happier than when they came. Those are the key things to have a great customer service interaction, and those are the areas that Balto focuses on helping people with.
That's cool. So 6 years at a office and household moving company, people would lose their minds, moving across the country or moving residences, which I got. It's stressful. And then working in restaurants too. I think combined I've had like 8 years of restaurant experience, a little bit of management, bartending, serving. So much of it's just letting people talk themselves out, and then showing them some sort of action, but yeah, you just got to let them run. I could see it almost on the screen, like, let them talk, let them talk, let them talk. Let them know they're heard. That's pretty cool coaching. That's helpful.
Yeah. So, you also can't solve it too fast.
Right. Right.
And I know that sounds a little crazy, but you can't jump right to the solution without taking just a second and just sitting with the problem and be like, all right, let me make sure I heard you. You said all boom, 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 boom. Do I have all of that right? And then if they say yes, you're on the same page. You say, all right, well, I'm sorry to hear that. Let's move on to a couple ways that we can fix that. You can't just jump onto the solution.
Totally. What's kind of interesting as a salesperson, this goes back to the sales philosophy a little bit, but instead of being on opposite sides of the desk, I try to pitch it as if we're looking over the table together and kind of like vision casting, like, okay, this is what we see, this is where we're going, let's work on this. It's something just philosophically I've always tried to do. Um, when it comes to startups I end up working with, I usually think like trust in like the people, see the technology working somewhere else, but not in insurance yet, and then believe in the team. If those boxes check, it's like, yeah, let's go work on something. Where has kind of this AI, customer service, and sales technology worked outside of insurance? Because usually insurance is a little bit slow to the game, but are there any other industries that have really been shining examples, or any other verticals that you could highlight that kind of help proof of concept too?
For sure. And it's funny, insurance has actually been recently pretty quick to the game. Like InsurTech, the conference, big freaking conference. The use of data and analytics in the insurance space, among the most advanced in the entire world for pricing and offering the right packages. The online experience that people are able to have through the insurance space, way better, especially for the complex products they have, than a lot of other industries.
That's cool. We don't usually get a pat on the back for that. And then what's kind of interesting about that is that, I'm independent, right? I'm out there kind of battling, and we see like the Geicos of the world and whoever else just being really smart and intelligent. So we almost have to like pick our spots, and like, maybe I do life insurance, that builds a relationship more, but we kind of see I'll call it the smart monsters coming. That's interesting to hear that they're doing it well from like a 10,000 foot level.
Yeah. I think over the last, I'll say 5 years, like night and day difference. Cloud, all of the data science talent, all the data that's available, night and day difference.
No, that's interesting. And like, as like I'll call it single shingle guy out there in the wilderness, kind of against it, it's good to know like technology is being used well. They can be really targeted, really smart and direct, and it kind of calls you out to make sure you're leveling up and being clever and creative in how you're approaching the game, how you're building those relationships, how you're thinking outside the box.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, it's very fun and interesting. It's good to know that the big guys are doing it well.
And the little guys are doing it better too, right?
Okay, cool.
Because you think about all these communities, and people through the communities are trying to get an edge. And it's a lot of folks who are, self-made, or just got handed down their family business, and they don't want to operate the family business in the same way their parents did. They want to take it to the next level and do something special with it. So then they look around and they say, hey, what are you all doing to get an edge? And they're in communities like yours.
Cool.
And they get a Slack message that says, I'm using Balto.
Yeah.
And they go, I guess I'm gonna check this thing out. So you'd be surprised at how the little guys are also really pushing the boundaries of technology, what they previously been capable of, even on the predictive dialer front, and just cool. the technologies they're using to dial out and have like leads properly aggregated. It's pretty phenomenal what's going on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I apologize, I should dove into the website a little bit more ahead of time, but it sounded like bigger orgs, but also smaller groups can fire it up. You can do, how small are usually like smaller clients?
Yeah, I would say our smallest are like 20 seats or so.
Yeah.
So I would say we work mostly with the bigger guys, but mad respect for the smaller ones too, because I see them hustling.
Well, it's funny, like there's such a nimbleness and a cool opportunity, like you're saying, the whole David versus Goliath. And it is good to hear that the larger orgs are, redoing their tech stacks, making changes they have to make. They always get picked on, but like, I'm not jealous of trying to figure out how to re-engineer a Cobalt server. That doesn't sound too fun, especially, these big companies have to deliver quarter over quarter results, whereas you're a little guy, you can move on a dime, and part of the problem sometimes is like not moving on a dime. Like you said, just kind of sit in there, work the plan, don't be too creative for your own good, and just make sure you have a process that you're following.
Yeah. And then when you're one of those big guys and you have to deliver the results every quarter, you also have to announce what you're doing.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You have to, because you're responsible to the shareholders. So it's much harder to keep things under wraps. You have to explain how you're spending your money and basically the things that you're working on to get a competitive advantage. So it's pretty cutthroat at the with the big insurance companies, and I do think little guys have the ability to be a lot more nimble.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I don't know. Do you have any advice for startups or companies that are trying to sell into carriers? Because I know they always get a bad rap. I know that they joke this, carriers have two speeds, slow and stopped. Um, the one thing I had heard, and I apologize for jumping in for an answer, is where people might think you going through a VC arm, they actually don't have as much sway inside the company. Go for somebody who has budget, somebody like a marketing arm or whoever else. It's a little bit easier to get those monies that are already on the table. But I don't know for Balto, how you started cracking those doors successfully.
I think that's generally right. I think it's like sales in general, which is, can you find someone who has a need, who has a goal this year to improve sales from this point to this point, or has a goal this year to boost their conversions in their mid-market segment, or a goal to whatever. And if you find someone who has a goal to make a change and has a problem and they're looking at it and they don't quite know how they're going to get there, and then you're able to come in, introduce what you have, and show very clearly how you can get them there. And the chance that it works and the chance that it actually takes them where they want to go is very high. And that the second that they work with you, they can then go work on other things. I do think it's just classical, a classical sales approach. And you have to find the right person. You have to identify the need. You have to connect what you have to that need, and then help them evangelize it. That's one thing to remember, is that once you get that person excited and they say, all right, I'm in, well, then both of you have your work cut out for you. You have to go get everyone else on their team to get excited and be in. And I think that a lot of times people get stuck at that particular step that, internally at Balto and our sales team, we call that consensus building. They get stuck in the consensus building process. And you should be thinking ahead of time, not just how do I win this person's trust and get them excited about what we're doing, but how do I equip them to go get everyone else that they know excited about what we're doing. I think people tend to drop the baton, right in that spot.
No, you're right. You get that first initial yes, but you don't know where the decision really lies. I learned that lesson with the nice office move I totally thought I had, but then I realized I had like the office manager sold, but I didn't have the actual decision maker sold, and I lost the deal after I thought I had it. You kind of got sold to the finish line. It's funny, I worked at a real small brokerage, worked at kind of a startup kind of insurtech company. But those whisper systems are really common, aren't they? Like, I haven't been around them too much, but I know in big, mortgage lending companies, whatever else, that's a pretty, having that extra person in your ear, it's pretty cool the way that you guys switched it over to text. I think that makes so much more sense, in the flow of things.
Yeah, I think that whisper is starting to get a bad rap, because everyone has been on the receiving end of that and had someone whispering to you and knows what that feeling is like. And it's painful for the managers, because they're sitting there doing a ride along or side by side with reps for 4 hours to try to get one golden minute, and then they've been doing nothing for the last 4 hours, so they're kind of antsy and ready to whisper at anything. And it's like, how do you make sure that when you receive some sort of feedback as a salesperson, how do you make sure that the feedback is actually the thing that you should do right then, and you should focus on that thing? And it has to be really timely, and it has to be relevant, and it has to change the course of the call. And whisper mode is not built for that. Whisper mode is probably more like hover mode.
Yeah. No, I could see that. And just as a human being, especially in kind of a heightened moment of sales, like, it'd be hard to kind of take into the same inputs, That's cool the way you guys have broken it up. But I really appreciate you kind of breaking things down, what's going on in Balto. It's just fun too to talk more generally about sales. And we do have a lot of people from carriers and everything else who follow us. So if people want to check out Balto, where should they head, or how should they find you?
They can find Balto at balto.ai, BALTO.ai. And they can find me at linkedin.com/in/Balto CEO.
Cool. I like that custom tail. Mine's BrokerBrett LinkedIn. It's kind of funny. It's such an interesting thing when you spot people who kind of know how to grab that. And I'll make sure I have all that posted too. But dude, thanks for, taking the time. And it's really cool to hear about what's going on at like this level, is, figuring it out at more ground level too. And, just being aware of what's happening in the ecosystem is always helpful.
Brett, this was a lot of fun. Thank you too.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Oops.